Now, these are not the same as the Common European Framework competences. It's some overlap, but they're not the same, because, as I said, the Common European Framework does not have criticality. And we'll come to that. But the Common European Framework does talk about knowledge, and what we've got here are the knowledge that they were using in this interaction with something from another culture, with Christmas cards from Britain, and their own. So there is the theory, if you like, is the more theoretical definition is what I'm talking about. And let's not worry about the details of working through that properly, but the idea is that there are different kinds of savoir. The word savoir in French means both knowledge and skill. So it's a nice word because it covers both. But anyway, knowledge is part of the general competences, and she's been teaching them some knowledge. But not only about other countries, also about their own. And in this case, more about themselves than about Britain. They've been doing some relating and comparing. That's in the Common European Framework. They've been doing that, and she planned that in the way that she organised the lessons. Not just in terms of what she planned, the symbols of Christmas, but what developed the question of concepts of charity. So I said that one of the big problems, and one of the problems that was mentioned at the very beginning, is how do we link what I'm talking about with, if you like, language as form and the teaching of language, linguistic competence. How do we link it? I think one link is semantic. If you like, what they were learning in this lesson was the word, or in these lessons, was one word. Well, two words. One word was Christmas, and the other word was charity. Now, you can go to the dictionary and they can look up Christmas, and they can find the Bulgarian for Christmas, but it's not, of course, the same connotations and the same thing. They can equally go to the dictionary and look at the word charity, and they'll find a Bulgarian word. But because they didn't have charities, that word would be a kind of loan translation. It wouldn't give them any sense of what the word charity in English or British English means. But that for me is one of the most important things. Now, you can't do that for every word, of course. But if they, in the course of these lessons, are learning to understand how semantics works and the difference between the word charity or the word Christmas in English and the words in Bulgarian, then that skill, I hope, would transfer into their thinking about all their vocabulary learning. So they did some skills of interpreting and comparing. They did some discovering what in the framework calls strategies of contact, I think was the phrase they used in the framework. But the same kind of thing, of finding out, being able to observe for yourself, being able to investigate, being able to categorize, a bit like a social scientist. And there's the more abstract definition of that. And then they were becoming curious. Many people say that it's important to teach tolerance in the work we do. I say, okay, maybe it is, but it's more important, and it's certainly more possible to create curiosity. Tolerance is a very difficult topic, which I won't go into now. But it's certainly becoming curious and being willing to think that other people can do things differently. That was perfectly okay, is important. But they were becoming curious, in this case, about their own society as much as about Britain or any other language, other English-speaking country. So curiosity and openness are the key phrases. And then we come to critical cultural awareness. This is what, as I said, you don't find in the Common European Framework. Now this is my link with criticality. And if you like, this is a definition of criticality. as it applies to language teaching. So what they were doing in this lesson, as I said, perhaps to the surprise of the teacher, was that they were beginning to think critically about their own society. They were evaluating the change in Bulgarian society since the change from communism, the advantages and disadvantages. In the more complete description of what she did, she explains that the discussion moved on, not beyond the question of charities, but to were things better in the old days. Remember, they were 17-year-olds, they were only 10 or 11 at the change from communism to capitalism, if you like. And so for them it was, in a sense, part of history. They weren't old enough to think about it at the time. So the teacher found herself stimulating their interest in Bulgarian society much more in this case than in British society, or American or any other. So they've got that ability to evaluate critically and on the basis of explicit criteria. So they were thinking, okay, in communist days, these were the values. Everybody's equal, ideally, and so on and so on. So everybody gets the same wage, nobody is rich, nobody is poor, there is no charity, there's no need for charity. Today, some people are rich, some people are poor, some are free. We're all more free than we were, but there are poor people. So they were looking at pros and cons and thinking about the different basis upon which they were thinking on. The communist thinking is one way of thinking. The capitalist thinking and its values is another way of thinking. And you have to be clear about what your standpoint is. Don't just say, oh well, capitalism is wonderful, Christianity is wonderful, Islam is bad, capitalism is wonderful, communism is bad, etc., etc. These things get done, don't they? The idea is that they should be more careful and explicit about their standpoint in saying things, in evaluating both their own and other countries, or other societies, other parts of our own society, but we as foreign language people tend to focus upon other countries. So, perhaps I can sum up. Yes, I can certainly sum up. These general and communicative competences described in the Common European Framework, when in what's called content-based instruction, or where you use a language to teach another subject, or CLIL, the content and language integrated learning, which is the same thing, where you focus upon content, then in such lessons, and I don't think those exist in Japan, to my knowledge, you don't have bilingual schools where English is the medium of instruction, do you? At least I've heard of one, but it's quite common in many countries to have so-called bilingual schools, which are actually schools where foreign language is taught by using it as a medium of instruction for teaching everything. And that happens in Bulgaria, but that happens in many places in Europe and North America as well. So in that case, then in that situation, you are inevitably using, or hopefully, using both the linguistic competences, or teaching both the linguistic competences and the general competences. If you are using the first language, so in Bulgaria, if you are sometimes, as sometimes happens everywhere, if you're using the Bulgarian language in an English classroom, that's what I mean by the use of L1, then you are doing what the Southampton film class was doing, because the Southampton film class, perhaps I should be clear about that,